Okay, here we go. And thanks for joining me today and welcome to Flourish in Stressful Times. This is the third class in a series of five. I'll point that out in a minute or two. This one is all about connection, our relationships, and how important they are and what a difference they make to our happiness and well-being, but more importantly, to the overall sense of flourishing. So if you have any questions between classes, feel free to reach out to me. I'm in the book in the email system. My colleagues are listed there, just so you know, some of the well-being and other EFR colleagues and the new health coaches. And I'll tell you about that also. So first thing, just to kind of go over the overall class, I realize some of you may be new. And so this is, as I said, the third in a five-part class. So we had classes on June 16th and July 1st. The June 16th one was kind of an introduction to flourishing and what it's all about and how it's different, and a little bit about the app that we're going to be using, which is listed there. The one on the 1st of July was on awareness. And so this one's on connection, and then the last two are on insight and purpose. Those are the four pillars of flourishing according to the Healthy Minds Institute and app. So that's the app that we're going to be using. I do have some suggested practices to do in between classes if you really want to get the most out of this. It really does help to do some sort of regular practice, or just do some things in between, kind of like homework or just practice sessions. Okay, so keep that in mind, and I'll point those out towards the end. So before we kind of get into today's lesson, let's just take a brief break. You've probably all been pretty busy doing a lot of things and tasks and all those, the busyness of the day. So just take a moment to settle into your seat. Just feel the weight of your body. Just get comfortable. You can close your eyes if you like, but this will just take a minute. And just bring your awareness to your breathing. So just be aware of when you're breathing in, and be aware of when you're breathing out. And if you want to take a couple of deeper, longer breaths, that might be helpful to feel the actual breath itself, but also to relax a little bit. So just feeling a little deeper breath in and then out. And the second part of this brief exercise, as you breathe in whatever might be helpful for you today. Okay, so maybe that's just a little bit of relaxation or de-stressing or focus or compassion. What would you need in the moment? And breathe that in on each in-breath. Sort of like intentionally bringing that quality into your heart area. And then focus on the out-breath. And this time I want you to focus on somebody that you know of who could use a little something, compassion or de-stressing or focus or care, whatever it might be. And as you breathe out, send that compassion, that care to them, kind of in your mind. Imagine them receiving it. So every time you breathe out, you're sending it to them. And then bringing them together. That's the last step of this brief exercise. Breathing in for you. So breathing in that quality, whatever you need. Feel it coming into the body and the mind and the heart. And then breathing out to that other person. In for you and out for another. And when you're ready, we'll finish that brief exercise. That's just a quick one to kind of get us into the moment, into this class. It's all about taking care of ourselves and others. But also the first part of that was really about awareness, just simple awareness of the breathing like we did last week. And that's something that would be helpful to continue to cultivate. What are you aware of in the moment? Just noticing sounds and what's going through the mind and what feelings are arising and what's going on in the body. Just simple awareness. So that's something to build upon. So how's it going? Let me just ask, how are you all doing with, hopefully you did some of the practices in the last couple of weeks. I'm going to take a quick sip here. Excuse me. You can use the chat, or feel free to speak up. But did you get a chance to try some of the exercises? And if so, how did it go? Any questions or comments? Welcome them. And remember, we always kind of break this down into formal practices. So sitting and perhaps if you, hopefully you're using the Healthy Minds app, there are formal practices where you sit for a few minutes, listen to the guided instructions and do the practice. But then there are some informal practices. The one we did in the beginning here might be considered an informal quick practice. And for simple awareness, another quick practice is just simply paying attention to what you're doing while you're doing it. And this helps to kind of not multitask, which we all have a tendency to do to get stuff done. This is kind of like single tasking and being aware of what you're doing while you're just doing that one thing. Now, we've kind of trained our minds to do all sorts of different things at once. So that's what we're trying to counteract. All right, this is a great suggestion. I set a daily alarm to remind myself. That's so key, to do something to either set an alarm or give yourself a reminder, or maybe do it right before or after your morning coffee, something like that. Link it to something that you already do. If I have time, I do one of the practices from the app. Good. If I don't, it's at least a good reminder to check in where I am and how I'm doing. Great. That's excellent. Hey, if you have any other comments, let me know from anyone. But yeah, that's a good, that contains a lot. So I appreciate that. All right. Well, moving forward, and at any point, just feel free to put into the chat any questions or comments. So we've all heard guidelines about how important it is to be physically healthy, to eat well, exercise, wash our hands, get plenty of rest. But this class is all about our social health. So how many of us have really thought seriously about our social lives? Yeah, it's important to us, but in the sense of the strength of our relationships and our sense of belonging in a community as key to staying healthy. It's such an important factor, right? I happen to be a tennis fan. I like watching tennis on TV and professional tennis. And it's a pretty solo sport, from at least the folks who play singles. They're out there by themselves on the court. It's very competitive. It's a very high stress situation. But any sports like this, there are a lot of team sports, but tennis in particular is kind of a solo sport. But it struck me while listening to the comments, because they interview them after the match, and both the winner and the runner-up, the loser of that particular match, they always point out how important it is to them to have the support of their team. They have a coach, they have a nutritionist often, they have a physio, they have all these people, family and friends and other people to support them. And that's so important to them. And it's that same concept, in order to get the best out of ourselves, to be able to bring out the best, we need those other people, right? And it turns out in the research that really comes out. So this is a longitudinal study that they did, started way back over 80 years ago in 1938 at Harvard. And it's called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. And they took a bunch of people, they've added on to them to make a more diverse population over time. And they also interview and research their families. So it's become a pretty wide group of people that they're studying. And the kind of the basic question is, what makes a good life? What makes a good life for health and happiness and longevity? And they've been following these people for, several generations now. So what do you think the number one factor is? The single most important factor to longevity and happiness in your life? Well, of course, it's what we're all talking about today. It's good relationships keep us happier and healthier. That was the number one factor that's come out of their research so far. And there are three other lessons learned. Um, Social connections are really good for us, and conversely, loneliness kills, or at least doesn't, it's really bad for us, right? Um, I think we know this intuitively, but today's class is all about how do we make it, how do we strengthen our relationships and our connections. The second lesson is it's not just the number of friends you have, and it's not whether or not you're in a committed relationship, even, but it's the quality of your close relationships that matter. And then number three, good relationships don't just protect our bodies, they also protect our brains. So they help us with our brain fitness, they help us live longer. Of course, the mind body connection is there. And if you want to read more about the study, this is actually, it's a YouTube video. When I send the slides out, you can watch it. It's not too long, but he kind of summarized it, called The Secrets to a Happy Life. Now, I put this in here because it really is about health and happiness, but I think it has a direct connection to flourishing and is part of flourishing, which is our relationships and connections. So this is Dr. Robert Waldinger, who is the current director of the study. Small steps that you can try.
Hi, Sean. I'm calling to follow up with a voicemail I just received.
Mute.
My car. Yeah.
I'm going to mute everybody here. So here we go. All right. So this is what he does. What he's learned directly from his own study. I do small actions day to day that keep me connected with other people. I didn't used to, but then my research began to show people who do are happier, live longer, and stay healthier. So that's the whole point. We have to put it into practice, and I'm going to make some suggestions, and we'll do some practices today. Then I started deliberately making dates with friends, going out to dinner with other guys. I have a Friday noon meeting every week with a friend and colleague, and I make small and frequent contact with other people I want to stay connected to. And he does say that texting counts, so it's maybe not as quality as being face to face, but in the overall scheme of things, texting helps us stay connected. Now, I don't really touch too much on our close, significant relationships, so I put this in here. This is from the Science of Happiness podcast, which I've referenced. And it's the 7-day kind of love challenge. So 7 days of small, simple practices that you can do to improve your relationship. And so I just wanted to put this in here. This link is active when you get it, if you want to follow up on that and see what it's about. But it's really not hard. There's pretty easy steps that you can take. Now, I've used this, if you've been in my other classes, I've used this several times before, but I just think it illustrates perfectly what we're talking about in this age of texting and digital distractions and our phones and so many AI and all this craziness that's going on all around us. So Dilbert is trying to talk to his friend, I think Wally's his name. Studies say people are losing their ability to focus because of all the digital distractions. But Wally's kind of holding up his phone. He goes, "Sorry, what?" He's not really listening. And Dilbert says, in the meantime, oh, hold on. His phone is beeping. And our phones are a major source of distraction. So then Wally finally goes, "What were you saying?" Dilbert goes, "I don't know. Probably wasn't important." So total disconnect. But it's really not that far from the truth. How many times do you see people, who are together in a restaurant or something, and they're both looking at their phones? But as our technology becomes so pervasive, we can't forget how important that shared real world face-to-face experiences are for strengthening relationships and to really listen on a deeper level. I do have an exercise that you can try later with people in your life. If you want to try that, it's just on more mindful listening. But if there's someone in your life you'd like to be closer to, reach out to them this week, and arrange to meet up. It's the best way to make them feel valued, to develop some closeness and intimacy and a lasting bond. So that's one quick practice you can try. Now, another thing that we're kind of fighting against is burnout. We all, well, I shouldn't say that, but I don't want to assume, but we have busy lives. Let's put it that way. In our busy lives and the stress that we're under at work and at home really make it hard to be connected. In fact, these are the three things that happen that burnout or high stress can make us withdraw socially. So research shows that social withdrawal is a key symptom of burnout. Just want to be alone. We want to disconnect. We want time on our own, but it creates this vicious cycle. The more isolated we become, the harder it is to break free from burnout's grip. It also strains family dynamics, no surprise there. When we're burned out, we need our families most, but recent studies show that anxiety levels have jumped and this stress tsunami is flooding our homes. The emotional exhaustion makes it hard to be present. Again, makes sense. If we're emotionally exhausted and we come home completely, wiped out from the day, it's really hard to be present. Now, sometimes that can really work for us if we can let the stress of the day, let it go. And then when we come home to family and friends or others, that can be a way to really connect in a more real way and let go. Don't think about the stress. Don't even talk about it, but just really enjoy the present moment you have with your family and friends. And then friendship, it can create erosion in our friendships. Just the energy to maintain those bonds can be overwhelming when you're feeling overwhelmed at work or with other responsibilities. So there's a link here if you want to read the article when you get the slides. It's from Forbes. So you might want to check that out. So I'm giving you a bunch of references and just some background on all this. Not to convince you, but just to show you that there's some pretty good research and evidence behind all this. Now, this is, again, from Greater Good magazine. Castley Killam, author of the new book, The Art and Science of Connection, argues that social health matters as much to our well-being as mental and physical health, and in fact is interrelated to each and necessary for keeping us fit. So again, a whole book on this. So what does she mean by social health? For her, it refers to a deeper connection, mutual support, and a good relationship with yourself. So talking a little bit about self-compassion and self-kindness as well. And having the support you need and feeling cared for, understood, valued, and like you belong. I mean, that kind of says it all when you think about it. If you feel like that, that's going to obviously contribute to your health, your happiness, and your well-being. And I think also to your sense of flourishing. So this is interesting. So this is from her studies. So number one, stretch if the quantity is low. So if you have fewer social ties than you want, you may need to expand the places where you're looking to connect with people. Number two, rest if the quantity is high. So some people feel they have too many social ties and become overwhelmed by their social responsibilities. If this is you, you may want to pull back from some of those wider social networks and focus more on the people closest to you. It means kind of we have to say no at times, which is hard for some of us to do. The third is to increase closeness if the quality is low. So sometimes we have lots of social connection, but we're still lonely because we don't feel close to anyone. In this case, you may need to take more risks to increase intimacy with people you already know, perhaps by sharing a personal struggle or asking for advice or expressing gratitude to that person. And then number four, flex if the quality is high. So When the quality of your relationships is high, you may not need to do much but general maintenance just to keep it going. Continue to do whatever is working in nurturing those relationships. Just don't let them go. You do have to work on it a bit, right? This is another quote. For social health, flex your social muscles to enjoy the benefits of mutual, meaningful connection in your lives. So, and then this one last thing on the bottom here, one study even found that, because you might be saying, well, I'm more of an introvert, it's harder for me to reach out. And yes, it can be. I understand that. I'm basically an introvert myself. But the study found that for both introverts and extroverts, they both benefited in their daily lives from having more frequent and deeper conversations with other people. And even though you might not expect that from introverts. So wherever you are on that spectrum, it still applies to you. See what you can do with some of this stuff. So here are some specific how-tos, some guidelines. These are kind of like, how they were told we should walk like 10,000 steps or get 8 hours of sleep or drink 8 glasses of water. Well, these are kind of like what they've come up with, just some suggestions. So Canadian researchers created numeric guidelines, and then Killam, came up with her own prescription, and it is kind of prescriptive. First, connect with 5 different people every week. Second, maintain at least 3 close relationships in general. And third, dedicate at least 1 hour each day to social interaction. So just some ways to kind of think about general guidelines that you can try to implement. Now, this also is just some more suggestions. This is from a New York Times 7-day challenge. And that link should take you there if you want to follow up on this, but it gives you 7 different ways to deepen or increase your connections. Everything from taking stock, the 8-minute phone call, so it's a brief but good connection type of phone call, chat up someone you don't know, thank someone special, get closer to a colleague, put a social plan on the calendar. We really have to schedule things much like we do at work. And then keep it going, set goals, commit to consistency, and get some sort of rituals and routines for this stuff. It really makes a difference. I'm in a bike group, cycling, and we've been doing this for like 40 years, which is crazy when we think about it. And one of the ways we've kept it going is that we meet every other month. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but every other month we make it a point to get together, and we do now have hybrid meetings because some of the guys are in other states now. But we do get together and we reconnect, and then we have a annual cycling trip in the summer. So that's kind of what all keeps us really connected, where we spend time together for the whole weekend. But that's been going for a long time, and it's those kinds of rituals that can really make a difference. All right, so just wanted to throw this in here. There's some pretty good research on the brain and the networks, and that when we're doing these kinds of exercises, we're really strengthening things like our mirror neurons. So what's a mirror neuron? I had to look this up actually to give you a good description of it. I kind of get the idea, but mirror neurons are a type of neuron that fires both when an individual performs an action and when they observe someone else performing the same action. So this mirroring activity is thought to play a crucial role in understanding intentions, learning through imitation, and experiencing empathy. And of course, in our line of work, in healthcare, we need that, right? We need to be able to feel that. So the empathy part is when someone sees another person experience pain, same areas of the brain are activated as when they themselves feel pain due to the activity of these mirror neurons. Pretty fascinating, right? This is thought to be a basis for empathy and emotional understanding. So some of these practices, we'll get into them in a few minutes, you'll kind of see is we're intentionally bringing to mind others, kind of like we did in that first practice, and developing that muscle of empathy and compassion. And then, so how does mindfulness help? Well, it helps us engage the part of the brain that helps with our empathy. Uh, it helps us get in touch with that. It helps us kind of reset, kind of if we're really busy and we have a lot of digital distractions or we have a lot of burnout or stress. It helps us step back from that. And so that gives us that ability to recognize when someone is hurt or afraid, and we're able to feel with them and feel that tenderness when our compassion arises. All right, so getting into some of the practices now, and I'm going to tell you about this one first, and then I'll pause and see if you have any questions, okay? Hopefully you're still with me, but please let me know if you have a question. So loving kindness meditation is kind of a classic meditation from really centuries ago. And all it really does is I'm going to bring this all together in today's practice. But what you do is you bring to mind somebody in your life who you can easily feel loving kindness or gratitude or appreciation for. And you bring them into your mind, you get in a mindful place, and then you think loving kindness thoughts, and you send them those wishes. Things like, may you be healthy, may you be happy, may you be at ease, may you be free from suffering. Those are classic kinds of phrases that we use during the meditation. Then you include yourself. You also include maybe somebody who's neutral in your life, somebody you don't know that well, but somebody you kind of cross paths with. And then you even include people that you might be having some difficulties or kind of challenging. And you do the same thing. You send them those messages. Now, it sounds kind of like, it sounds kind of superficial in a way, but again, studies have actually shown that these kinds of practices work. They help to increase our compassion and our caring towards others and ourselves. And we will all incorporate some of that into the practice today. Now, just as important is self-compassion. So basically similar to self-kindness. So trying to treat ourselves like our best friends. If you think about some of the messages that we sometimes send to ourselves, in our self-talk up here between the ears, sometimes we're not too kind to ourselves. If we mess something up or we did something that we're not happy about, or somebody did something, but usually if it's directed towards ourselves, we can be pretty, that inner critic comes up pretty easily. And so self-compassion is really all about realizing, hey, if your good friend did something and was coming to you for support and advice, what would you tell them? Probably wouldn't be the same thing that you're telling yourself. Wouldn't be that critical message. It would probably be pretty supportive and caring. So it's that kind of like remembering to give ourselves that same message. So the quote on the bottom there, however, Kristen Neff, who happens to be a leading researcher in self-compassion, suggests that replacing self-esteem with self-compassion may have far superior implications for our mental health and well-being. And these are the three elements of self-compassion, which is from Kristen Neff's work. So the first is simply self-kindness. So, realizing that if we notice that we're not being so kind to ourselves, that's where the mindfulness helps, to notice that, be aware of that, and to remember to be kind to ourselves, even when there are painful experiences that are going on. And then the second is common humanity. So it's recognizing that suffering and personal inadequacy is part of the shared human experience. We all go through this, right? Nobody really escapes that. But sometimes when we're in the midst of something that we're feeling bad about or kind of suffering in a sense, we sort of feel like it's just us. But so it's good to remind ourselves that we all go through this. We all go through these kinds of of feelings. It's just part of being human. The third is mindfulness itself. So it's so important to bring that mindfulness quality so that, again, that's what the awareness part of the class was about. And this is a good practical application of that, to be aware of those thoughts that are going through the mind that might perhaps not be so kind, the feelings that we're having towards ourselves and others, and how does that feel in our body. So those are the three areas that we can be mindful about. And again, this might seem a little academic, but we'll do this in the practice. We'll bring some of that into the situation. But here's a quick practice that you can try, and this is one that I would recommend, is a quick self-compassion mini break. So think of a situation that you're struggling with. Just kind of bring it to mind. And this is the mindfulness part. Notice thoughts, feelings, and body sensations when you start thinking about this situation. Take a deep breath. Say to yourself, others feel this way too. Take another deep breath. And then finish with, I will be kind to myself. Really making that statement and that intention. I will be kind to myself. And I will give myself what I need, whatever that is, compassion, nurturing, support, or whatever it might be. So that's a really quick practice that you can try anytime, anywhere. And again, this is being recorded, and I'm going to send you the recording and the slides so you'll have all this. Yeah, I'm just looking at this comment now from before. Yes, I hate it when I'm out to dinner or lunch and they pull out their phone. Yeah, it's become part of our social norms, unfortunately, but it really does send the message that they're not really there with you, doesn't it? They're not really listening or being present. But again, I'll point out a listening exercise. Now I said I was going to pause and I forgot, so let me pause. Any other questions or comments about what I've been talking about, especially any of this, the self-compassion or the mirror neurons or any of this kind of stuff? Any questions? Okay, so is there a link to the first two sessions? Yes, I'll send that out. I have the list of everybody who signed up on LMS, and so and at the end of the slides here, I'll also point out. But if you go to Thrive, which is on our intranet, and I'll show you how to do that in a few towards the end. But you go to, there's a page called Live and Recorded Resources, and the recording links and the slides are there from the first two sessions. But again, when we get to that slide, you'll see that. Any other questions or comments? All right, so I like this, making space for ourselves, kind of what we're doing with these self-compassion practices, giving ourselves permission to let go of self-judgment for a few minutes and approach our need with more compassion. Research shows that when we practice self-compassion, we're less likely to feel anxious and stressed. So that's a pretty good outcome, and more likely to feel happy and resilient. This can regulate our heart rate, reduce inflammation, and improve sleep. So good outcomes for this stuff. You're welcome. All right, so this is another practice, and again, I'm going to incorporate this, I call it balancing act. It's like what we did in the beginning, just like that. So as you breathe in, you're giving yourself compassion or whatever you need in the moment. As you breathe out, you send it out to someone else. So you're breathing in for you, out for another. And that's what I call balancing act. And now we come to today's practice. So let's take, I think this will take maybe, 8-9 minutes. So if you would like to participate, I hope you do. Just get yourself into a comfortable position. I am going to incorporate a few of these things into this. Hopefully it flows. But so just take a minute to sit comfortably. You can close your eyes if you like. or you can just keep them kind of softly open with like an unfocused gaze down in front of you. And just start by sensing your body, starting with your torso, being aware of the left and right sides, the back, the front, bottom, and the top of the torso. And then expanding out to feel your body as a whole. So, including the legs and the arms and the neck and the head. Feeling the breath flow in and out of the torso, sensing an expansion on the in-breath and a subsiding on the out-breath. And wherever you feel it, just feel the sensations of your breathing. Be aware of it. The chest, the belly, the upper back. Now letting your awareness pour into your legs and feet, your shoulder, your arms and hands, your neck, your face, your head. Just being aware of the whole body and all those different parts. It's a way to establish this kind of stability of presence in the body. And then just feel the breath, breathing in and breathing out. I'm going to start like we did earlier. So breathing in, this is a little different. Breathing in, bring to mind caring for someone. Maybe a friend or a colleague or family member. So breathing in, or a patient. Bring to mind caring for this someone. Maybe just try to pick one person right now. Could even be a pet. And just focus on that, breathing in, experience that, what that feels like to care for that person. What do they need? Using that kind of mirror neurons in a sense, using your empathy, putting yourself in their shoes. And as you do this, pay attention to what it feels like in the body to do this. See if you can notice focusing on someone and caring for them. See if you can notice maybe where you might feel this in the body. Maybe a warmth in around the chest, or even a sense of lightness or relaxation, or maybe something around the heart area. And, don't worry if you don't feel anything at all. That's okay. Sometimes that's why we practice this. It kind of gives us, the more we practice this, the more we can be in touch of what that feels like in the body. So kind of receiving into the self a feeling of compassion for those or that person that may be burdened at this time. Focusing on your good wishes for them. Sending them your kindness, your care, your compassion. And just resting in your good-heartedness. And maybe even sending them the message, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be happy, may you be at ease, may you be free from suffering, may you get what you need. Whatever it is, those are just suggested phrases. You can use your own if you like. And just kind of resting in those feelings of compassion and loving kindness. And whenever it feels right, we can shift the focus to receiving care and compassion. Sometimes this is a bit harder for us. And whatever might feel comforting or supportive or hopeful or beneficial at this time, receiving that which you need, breathing into your heart area, allowing yourself to receive this care and kindness and compassion. And notice how this feels. Are you accepting this, or is there some resistance? It's okay. Again, it is not, we're not judging it, we're just noticing, right? And we can also receive into ourselves a feeling of acceptance for the way it is. It's not that we prefer it if it's something difficult, but we can recognize the reality of it, accepting if we can, focusing on acceptance, and especially if there's nothing we can do about it, it is the way it is. All right, so that's feeling that care for someone else and also accepting care into yourself. It could sort of be shortened like we did in the beginning. So breathing in for you, what you need, breathing out for another, sending that out to them. You could do that for a few breaths if you like. Breathing in what you might need, care, compassion, kindness, nurturing, and breathing out to others what they may need in the moment, what they may need in the face of what they're dealing with. Now, for the final part of practice, I'm going to do kind of shifting a little bit. This is keeping the eyes closed. If they're closed, we're going to continue on with the practice just for a couple more minutes. Bring to mind someone you appreciate. So this is about feeling appreciation. Take a moment to feel their presence. If you can think of something they did for you, something specific, even if it's something small, it doesn't have to be big. Or maybe you witnessed them doing something for others, and just that something that you appreciate. Just see if you can get a clear memory of that. Just take a moment to get a sense of it, and of that person, even if it's just a general sense. And just take a moment to appreciate that and see how this feels in the body. See if you can be aware of that feeling of appreciation. Might be that warm feeling in the chest, or perhaps a lightness, or maybe just an overall sense of gratitude and well-being and appreciation for that person. And if you had the chance, how would you express the gratitude to this person? What words would you use? And you might imagine them receiving this appreciation. And notice how you feel. So in this practice, we're becoming familiar with how appreciation feels and how to stay connected to it. Here we're just noticing it. We're becoming more familiar with it. We're treating it like a skill. It will more naturally arise, and you'll start to tune into it. The more we practice it, the more we do that kind of appreciation practice. And so bringing that practice to a close, you can maybe just, again, reconnect with your body sitting, feeling the breath again. And if the eyes have been closed, you can open them up as we finish the practice for now. All right, so put a few things into that, but that's kind of what I call a connection compassion practice. So again, would love to hear what you think of that. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to. Oh, thank you. That was so good. Appreciate that comment. Good. Well, I'm glad it was good. Um, it's the kind of practice that we don't do. Sometimes we think of meditation and mindfulness as, just focusing on the breath or the body. That's, all very good, but this really takes it to a different level. We start bringing in our own compassion, our own connection and self-compassion, and ways to be better at connecting with others. So this is that listening exercise. If we were in a room, it would be easier. It's hard to do on Zoom, but you might try this with somebody. You choose a partner. You take turns, okay? One talks for just anything really about the weekend that they recently had or that they're planning for coming up, and just that person talks for 2 minutes. And you, as the listener, just listens intently with focus. You don't ask any questions. You don't break in. You can't. That's the hard part. Just listen for 2 minutes. You might notice what you want to get across. You might notice distractions, both internal and external, but just listen. And it's most people say it's kind of hard to do. It's only 2 minutes. But just you can make nonverbal body language and like facial expressions and things like that. Let them know that you're listening, but you can't open your mouth when you're listening. Then switch roles, and then you tell that person for 2 minutes, something like that. And then just kind of process it. What was it like to really listen? What was it like to really be listened to? Really kind of interesting. So you might give that a try. All right. Good. Another good comment there. Very opening and freeing. Thank you. Good. So coming towards the end here, so I just have this quote from Pema Chodron, who's a mindfulness a Buddhist teacher. Meditation practice isn't about trying to throw ourselves away and become something better. It's about befriending who we already are. So I included this because, those practices about connection and compassion, they're there. We have those. Yeah, they can be developed, but it's about bringing them forth in a sense. It's about getting away from the distractions, digital or otherwise, and bringing them up to the surface and using them more. So here are some suggested home practices. So we have 2 weeks until the next class, which is on July 29th. Same time, 12 noon. It's on a Tuesday. Using that Healthy Minds app, explore. There's a whole section on connection. You can kind of pick and choose. There's a lot there. There's 3 different parts. One is on appreciation. Part of that, what I just did, was from there. Second part is on kindness. Third part is on compassion. So there's really a lot there. Try one of the lessons. If you've tried it, you'll see there are brief, 5 to 7 minute lessons, and then meditations. And I think you can actually pick the length of time. I usually pick 10 minutes, but try some of the meditations as well. And you'll see there's a lot of different ones to try. And this is all part of our flourishing practice. And then try to mix in some informal practices. Maybe that breathing compassion in and out like we did. You can do that anytime. Remember that connect slide. So maybe try some of the things on the connect, some of those different little quick techniques, or try that self-compassion break. Okay, so those are just, some suggested practices. I hope you get to try. I mean, somebody had said earlier, set up a reminder, send up, I put something on my phone, gives me a little reminder to do the practice. I think there's actually a reminder you can put in using in the Healthy Minds app. So do something to help encourage you to do the practices. Now, these are all, if you want to try different stuff related to some of the stuff I talked about today, these are all links on self-compassion. Here, there are 4 different YouTube's videos if you want to try those. There are more videos on that you can check out on listening, deep listening. These are both very good, actually. And then also on self-compassion. So if you have the time and you want to dig into it a little bit deeper, check those out. They're all pretty brief, but meant to kind of supplement what we're doing here. Now, this is a different app. So M Life is an app that we've had through our EFR program. So I point this out because they do have an on-demand course called Cultivating Compassion, which is 3 different episodes. So that's just another alternative that you might check out if you already have it, or you want to download it. You go to this link, and that's how you sign up for it. It's free. It's through our program. Still doing the monthly mindfulness classes. So that's if you want to continue, if you like, this is kind of how I structure these. A bit of a lesson about the focus of the class, and then we do a practice. So the monthly mindfulness classes are the second Wednesday of every month. So the next one's on August 13th. And that one is from 12:30 to 1:15. And then we're still doing the Take 10. They're really not phone meditations anymore. We're doing them on Teams. And so you need an invite for that. So if you want to join this, I'm happy to send you the invite. As you can see, they're Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2, 10 minutes, live meditations. I do a couple a week, and then I have 2 other folks who help me out on the other days. So, please, love to have you join us on one of those. Just a quick reminder about the EFR program. Lots of great services through the program. There's the phone number. There's that same link, which by the way, there's also an app for that too. I don't want to confuse you, but there's an app for everything, right? But yeah, the program is very helpful. It has lots of great services that are free and confidential for all employees, and your dependent family and household members. We also now have health coaching through Thrive. And by the way, these classes that I do, plus all this health coaching, will give you credits for the Know Your Numbers. And so for the classes that I do, it's $100 per class credit you can get. You just have to go in and self-attest. You can do up to 2 classes for me for their EFR classes. And then the Thrive Health Coaching, I think it's $150 credit when you do a health coaching session. And you can do these for any of these particular focuses. And then to start that, you just email them at thrivehealthcoaching@ynhh.org. And that's how you get in touch with one of the health coaches. I know I'm kind of running out of time. Sorry if I'm going over again. But this is kind of a full topic. But again, this is the Thrive. If you don't know how to find it on the intranet, when you open it up, go to Departments and Communities, go to T, you'll see Thrive. It opens it up to this is like the home page. You'll see the live and recorded resources. That's where the other classes are. That's what I was talking about before. And under My Wellbeing, you'll see all the EFR and mindfulness related offerings. And then there's a bunch of other stuff too under all these different honeycomb areas. So with that, I'll say thank you so much for joining me again. I'll close and stop the recording in a minute, see if you have any questions, but also want to say peace. I hope this has been helpful, and namaste. I bow to you. I appreciate you coming and attending. And yeah, thank you for, yeah, that's a good comment. Thank you for the thank yous, everyone. Yes, I've heard it said that most people listen to respond. Yes, and that exercise is to try to overcome that. So thank you all. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to stop the recording. And if you have any questions, I'll be on for a couple more minutes, but really appreciate your coming today.
Thank you, Bud.
Thank
So
you.
appreciate you.
No, thank you so much. Let me stop the recording.